Thanks, Lonnie. I appreciate that. And I'll try to move the mic here so I'm looking everywhere. I really appreciate that introduction. It's kind of dangerous when you get introduced as a compelling speaker because now I feel the pressure is on. It's like introducing somebody and saying, oh, Neil's really, really funny, but my topic is serious, and it's a danger there. I want to give you a little background. You mentioned successful and failed businesses, but a part of my background that's important and relevant to today was that I've been doing government contracting one way or another since early 90s. First Iraq War, I was in the Army, so I did that for a while. When I came out, I started doing government contracting pretty much straight off. And since 1998, I've had my own companies doing various services in the government. And in those, I've always kind of stayed focused on sales and service and never on the process. Last year, I sold my last company that I've had for 10 years. It was a really successful company in the IC world, civilian sector, and the DOD. I always forget that small group. And it's been very focused. I've been very focused on the federal government and how to sell into the government and how to do services in there. When I sold my company, I said I wanted to start a new one. And I'm out of DC, if I hadn't said that. I'm out of DC, and I was getting ready to start a new company. I wanted to try a whole new spin on providing innovation to the government. How can I do something a little different rather than just time and material, which I had been doing? And right when I was starting my company, my wife was telling me about my niece was having challenges out in Oklahoma. She has 4 kids, and she went to school. She works really hard, 2 jobs, but she feels like she has no future in Oklahoma. She wants to live in Oklahoma. She's in Duncan, Oklahoma. And I didn't really care where I started the company, and I said, okay, well, let's go to Oklahoma and just start the company there. I'm in IT, so I can start it anywhere. For those of you who do that kind of work, you know that. It's different than construction, right? And so when I got there to Duncan, Oklahoma, I started around Tabby, and we got the company going, and instantly I began to understand the HUBZone program as an opportunity for my company. I became a HUBZone company in December, got certified as a HUBZone company. And in that process, I realized the challenge. The HUBZone program is an awesome program, but it's never hit its goals. 8A does phenomenal. It's like almost 10%, right? I looked at that and said, we have to mimic that. The women's program kept taking off, hit 5%, dipped a little bit. SDVO, same thing. But the HUBZone program wasn't doing that. So I said, what can we do? I looked around. There was really no one focused on it. I started the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce, and the purpose was really one goal, to get the $6 billion off the table. $13 billion is what I like to say goes to HUBZone companies. The government has done their job. They said, here's $13 billion. It's for HUBZone companies. Use it up. If you don't use it up, we'll push it somewhere else. We don't use it up. And so the second part of that is I said, how are we going to do this? And the only way to do it is to follow Michael Jackson's advice. Start with the man in the mirror. And I looked right in the mirror and I said, how can we do something about it? We contractors, it's not the government. Congress passed their laws and gave us money. The federal government has all set goals and they want to achieve it. The small business specialists are there trying to help us. The contracting officers put out RFIs and sources sought. And really, if you look in the mirror, HUBZone companies are not responding. So the HUBZone Chamber was formed to build that collaboration, to make ourselves accountable. And in 6 months, we've grown to over 800 active members. And none of us is pointing the finger somewhere else. We're all pointing it right back at ourselves. We have daily set-aside calls that look at an RFI, and try to figure out how to push it. And if I use 2 quick examples, recently the SBA, Marianne Pardo, forwarded a State Department opportunity. They were trying to get HUBZones who were interested, but they weren't responding. The RFI had closed, and they took one last chance to reach out to the SBA. Fortunately for me, the SBA was tracking us. And so she sent it to me in an email and said, can you get something back in the next day? It's 10-page response. And I said, of course not. But I said it much nicer. I said, wow, this is exactly what we're looking for, but one day that's just tough for all of you. You really can't respond that fast for the majority of us. I wish you'd keep us in mind the next time. And we happened to copy the contracting officer into that thread. I might have slid them in there. And they responded within 30 minutes. Hey, Neil, sorry, for the delay. We know this is short notice. How about they just express interest and provide this basic core part of information? I'm like, it's good, but let's do it. And so I reached out to the HUBZone Chamber membership, the active membership, as well as the inactive membership, because we do not, if I side note for saying, we don't charge dues. I don't believe in dues because then I focus on just you who are paying me. And so it's free. And so everybody gets their fair share in it. So we reached out to all the HUBZone companies who could do this work. In 24 hours, we got the State Department almost 100 responses from small businesses. Tell me they're not really seriously considering setting this aside to HUBZone. I don't know if I said this. It's a $200 million IDIQ. $200 million IDIQ could have just slid off the table. I'm at home complaining that $6 billion is not coming to me, yet I didn't respond to the RFI. But now I'm responding to it. 2 weeks later, NASA let us do the same thing with a $50 to $100 million IDIQ. These opportunities are there, and that's why I say look in the mirror. Now, we just don't say look in the mirror. We try to help you and move on in that direction. But speaking of looking in the mirror, and it's funny, no one has given me a time, and that's the bad thing to do to an Irishman. But I will try to keep it focused and slide it right out. When I was walking around here, I noticed everybody looked sharp. Right? I was looking and seeing that people look sharp. They were put together, from your shoes. Maybe I got a little fancy Converse that helps me walk around. But how we're dressed, how we look sharp. And it's because you were coming here to impress the Department of Energy's personnel and the fellow attendees. We wanted to look good, make a good first impression. And we're doing a good job on that. Unfortunately, in DSBS, the Dynamic Small Business Search, we look like we're wearing Crocs, sweats, and we still have pillow lines on there. I have 10 hours left? 10 minutes left? Then that's perfect. Anyways, in DSBS, if you don't really know what it is, because I made the assumption everybody knows what it is, but I don't think everybody does. When you start a company, the owner or somebody like that goes into SAM, registers at SAM, and then almost always forgets about it. I did that hurdle that I have to do to start a business, and then I moved on. But we miss out on the fact, and me personally, I missed out on it for the last 10 years. I didn't even really pay attention to it. It's the #1 marketing tool that we have. More important than a business card, more important than a capability statement, more important than your website. It's the passive marketing that sits out there. It's the first place all of these procurement professionals, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of procurement professionals, look. When they want to find a small business, they go in to DSBS, the Dynamic Small Business Search, and they type in two things generally. Clearly I'm making my opinion on how this goes, right? They type in a keyword, just like you would on Google, and they type in a NAICS code. And when you look at 300,000 of us who sit in the top of a funnel, right? That's how many small businesses are active to do business right now with the government. 300,000, when they type in a keyword in a NAICS code, it shortens that amount of us who are there. So we're being shortlisted. I did the same thing when I walked around, and some of you might do the same thing. I look over there and I say, that person's, and I didn't mean to point to anybody, but that person's grumpy. I'm going over here. And maybe it just had a burp or something, right? But it doesn't matter. I moved over and you've been shortlisted. And in the government, it's the same way. The difference in DSBS is they're looking at it every day. And so once they do a NAICS and a keyword, they move on and they begin to shortlist you on a capability narrative. They look at your past performance. Down at the bottom of it, it's the first place before you ever respond to the government. If you have a good capability narrative, that's your compelling story. If you have past performances listed there, that says you have experience. Now that contracting officer or small business specialist is saying, this is awesome. I have a person who's on my short list. And as soon as they find 20 or 50, that's a respectable amount to call it good market research, and they move on. So 300,000 down to 20 to 50, I want to be in that 20 to 50. So I'll try to wrap up with this part as I plan somewhere around my time, is that one of the things that we did for you, the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce did for you today, is we took all the attendees that we could, find the information, so about 110 of you, and we created this thing, and I know you all can see it really well, but we created one of these quick analysis reports for each one of you that looks at your DS profile and gives you a grade, A through F. And I give almost 50% Fs. And the thing about an F is it's failure, right? But it's fantastic. It tells you exactly where you're missing out on something that is a 1-hour task. If you go into DSBS and do these basic little things on your drive home, on the flight home, whatever it is, you will all of a sudden start being found. You will work really, really hard over here, but miss out on this. And so we did one of these for each one of you. If you have questions for me, you can ask. We're going to hold off and try to give these to you at right before lunch. So you can come and talk to me, but I'm not going to hand them out until right before lunch. And I will tell you, because 112 is a lot. I want to thank Sue, who's on my team right there, holding up her iPhone for some random reason. And, and the rest of my team, because a lot of us worked on it. 6 of us worked on this, putting this together for free, volunteer. I'm not looking for credit, but I would like you to take it serious. if you pick it up and actually do something, because it'll help you get more money. Frankly, I mean, that's the whole point of a small business. And it'll help the government actually have more qualified people to pull from in their pool. So if you're a HUBZone company, well, I got 5 more minutes and I was ready to walk off, but I will walk off anyways just to free up time in a minute. But if you're a HUBZone company, I would like to encourage you to join the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce. And for anybody who's interested, go to HUBZoneChamber.com. HUBZoneChamber.com, and on that you'll find a lot of information about the HUBZone Chamber, as well as how to join us. Joining us basically is to connect to LinkedIn. That's the entire process. So I'm going to introduce the next speaker, who is pretty exciting, right? Am I still doing that? I get to do that, or?
Do we have time for questions?
Oh. Oh, so
Yes.
we have
Want to do some questions?
Yes, go ahead.
two, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Do we, anybody have questions? They're up here. They just talked among themselves and said if anybody has questions. Does anybody have a question you want to ask me privately that you're willing to ask me now? Yes, in the back, number 7. Yes, membership in the HUBZone Chamber of Commerce is free. Our goal is to keep the cost to zero forever. We want to raise the tide, and one of the cool things about being in charge, you can set the rules. And so I have belonged to memberships where I feel like the organization wants to make sure you're getting an ROI for your payment, your membership dues, and then you begin not to see stuff. We have members from Guam to U.S. Virgin Island. I mean, we have a lot of members from Guam in every state in between. And that's exciting because it was really fast for them to do it. So yes, please join. And I'm sorry, just to be clear, we call it dues free, but we do require you to do things, like show up and do things. It's the same thing the government does. So you'll have to listen to us hassle you to, write an RFI response of quality or something. Yes?
Joanna Sandoval with SBA. How many active Colorado members do you have? No?
So yes, I know that, and I'll have to research my thing to get it to you. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Do your members have the ability to contact each other?
Yeah, so the membership is done through, so the question was how many members do we have from Colorado, and the broader question was can members interact with each other? Absolutely. We actually try to teach them to go into DSBS to find their buddies and connect that way. But membership is done through LinkedIn, a LinkedIn group. So as soon as you're in there, you're able to see all the members, you're able to message them, connect with them. We really want to improve communication, collaboration for all of the folks in there. I think Colorado has about 80. How many?
We have 10 in the chamber.
Okay, so there's about 80 HUBZone companies, I think, in how many? 94?
94.
So there's 94 HUBZone certified companies in Colorado, and there's 10 of them in the HUBZone Chamber until the end of the day, which I expect to be 30 or right. If you can't afford it, come to me and I'll pay for you. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Rob De Rosario with Newfound Horizons. I am a member of the chamber. However, it's been difficult sometimes with the roll calls. Sometimes, I don't know, the information, I guess, is not transparent sometimes about timing, different zoning. My headquarters is in Alaska.
Wait. Let me pause for a second. Can you restate the question? Is the challenge with the chamber or with the HUBZone?
I am a member of the HUBZone Chamber.
And thank you.
And sometimes it's challenging due to the zone.
Oh, the time zones.
Yes,
Because you're in.
Alaska.
Okay, so we're trying. Okay, so the question is, what can you do for me when I'm in Guam or Alaska and not Washington, D.C.? That's another classic problem, right? So we're pushing our activities later and later in the night. So when I say later and later in the night, I got 4-year-old twin boys, so I go home. But we're trying to push them into 3:30, 4:30, even 5 o'clock events, specifically for that. We're also going to mimic SBA's footprint of regional directors, I think. There's like 10 of them. We created 12. One for the Atlantic and one for the Pacific, specifically to begin to address opportunities up your way that aren't native to the Pacific Ocean, but are bringing countrywide opportunities there that are just convenient to you. It's very important to me that Guam has a shot, that the Mariana Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands, have a shot, because I'm in Washington, D.C. I can walk to anybody. and get into a meeting. But it's not hard at all. I just knock on it. Charlie, Mr. Smith is not here today, but he's in DC. I can walk down. How many of you can easily do that without cost? And I feel bad for the Pacific, or for the West and for the Pacific Ocean companies. And so the chamber is dedicated to trying to normalize that communication path. So definitely reach out, remind me you said that, and say, and that I told you I would do it. So hold me accountable right to it. Yes, sir.
How long does it take to join? Because I think I tried to join yesterday. Is it something that takes some days to implement if you're a HUBZone or something like that?
No, that's perfect. So the question is, how long does it take to join the HUBZone Chamber? 1 minute is all I got to answer that question. It really is a pretty fast process, but here's the thing. I'm the bottleneck. So the HUBZone Chamber membership is approved by me, and really I just look in to make sure it's somebody who has some way relevant. You don't even have to be a HUBZone anymore. We've expanded the PTACs. We just reached out to talk to almost 100 personnel from PTACs, and so we're encouraging them to join. But I don't travel with a computer anymore. Like, I've learned to just relax. And so your application's sitting back in DC. As soon as I get there, I'll hit approve, and we'll be good to go. I might get on Sue's computer just because you said that and do it. And yeah, so. Okay, so my time is up. If you have questions, please come talk to me. Right around lunchtime or something, you can get this. And then, Mr. Ross, I was going to introduce you still, right? And this is, again, the problem with putting me up here. The person who's going to make this event great for us today is Paul Ross. And Mr. Ross is a lead acquisition specialist with the OSBDU team. You've heard about that, and we're big fans of the OSBDUs. I find it interesting with my small kids. I'd be curious at probably a different range, but Mr. Ross, one of the things that people do is they talk about bios, and I like to talk about the dedication that he has to all of us. He is dedicated to the success of the small businesses. Every day when he leaves and says goodbye to the wife and the 3 kids, he's coming out here to support us. And I find that just really generous of you. You could have chose a career anywhere, all of you who are in the small business side. And on behalf of everybody here, I thank you for doing that. And I want you all to help me welcome Mr. Ross up here to make this event just awesome through the rest of the day.